Hey, y'all, it's Jake. Welcome back to another episode of the Fat Gay Texan. This is a show where we talk about anything and everything, and we don't throw political correctness out the window because why? We never let it in the house to begin with. This is an unplanned, unscripted, unscheduled episode of the Fat Gay Texan, and it's a very special one. So, for the last several years, a very good friend of mine has been battling brain cancer, and this morning he lost his battle with brain cancer and he passed away. So, not unexpected, still sad. And it hasn't even been 2 years since I lost my best friend and mother-in-law to cancer. She had lung cancer. Isn't it crazy? Death seems to happen, one right after the other sometimes. And you just you just think to yourself, like, what the hell? Didn't even get a break. So, am I sad? Yes, I'm sad. Am I unconsolable? No. And it got me to thinking about there are right and wrong ways to deal with death. And they always say, oh, there's no wrong way to grieve. But there is. They are so wrong. You can do it incorrectly. There is an unhealthy way to grieve. There is a wrong way to do it. What they should say is that there's more than one way to grieve. Because that's true. There's a million ways. In Texas, I always say, I used to have some friends that lived out in Granbury, and there's a million ways to get to Granbury. And said, you know what? I don't care which way you take. We're meeting for lunch at noon. So I always used to say that. I don't know why. There's not even a million ways to get to Granbury. It's something I've always said, though. There's a million ways to get to the city of Granbury. I don't care what you do, but by noon, we're having lunch. So there are right and wrong ways to grieve. And the biggest problem I see with people is they just don't get over it. I mean, at some point, you have to move on and get over it. Joan Rivers famously once said, I give myself 24 hours to cry and waller in my bed, and then I get up and I move on. Now, when you lose someone who's very near and dear to you, I don't think you can get over it in 24 hours. But the thought process behind that statement is that, yeah, you do have to get up and move on. Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to run your life? Your life is still existing. You still have a life to make. It doesn't mean you won't get sad at times. Just the other day, I was at a Chinese buffet, and my mother-in-law and I used to go to one very frequently, and we joked about it, but it was true. We went for the Jell-O selection. They have an excellent Jell-O selection at Chinese buffets. So we'd eat a little bit of food, and then we go get some Jell-O. And they always had three colors, red, yellow, and green. So we would get there. We'd eat the red first, then the yellow, then the green. And when you got to green for go, it meant you need to go get more Jell-O because you're out. So I was eating some Jell-O the other day at a Chinese buffet, and for about 30 seconds, I was in a trance because I was just flooded with thoughts of her, missing it and wishing she was there and thinking about the fun we had over that. So you never stop thinking about someone. You never lose the love for someone, but you have to get over the initial emotions. Years ago, and I mean probably like 10, 15 years ago, I was watching that show Undercover Boss. And one of the business owners, I guess, started it with his brother, and they're interviewing him. And they were asking about his life, and he starts going, well, I had a brother. And he breaks down on national TV. The guy died 20 years ago. Get over it. You still love him. You still think about him, whatever. But, oh, my God, to break down on national TV after 20 years, you didn't get the help you needed. You did not grieve correctly, because if you did, you wouldn't be an emotional wreck on national television for something that happened 20 years ago. It's ridiculous. And it sounds cold-hearted. And a lot of people, unless you're in this situation, you won't understand. When it came to my mother-in-law battling lung cancer, her death was as sad, but it was equally a relief. Because you get to the point, and it was the same with my friend Dan. His wife called me, and she said, Jake, she goes, she goes, it sounds bad, but I don't want to lose him, but I'm ready. I'm ready for this to be over. I'm ready for this to be over. And I felt the same way with my mother-in-law. It's like, I don't want to lose you, but this can't go on forever. this suffering, this whatever, this illness, because you get so worn out and you love the person. So you do it and you do it for them, but you get so worn out and so sick of it. It's a big burden. So the death is sad and relief at the same time. And it is okay to feel that way. It is okay to say, thank God this is over. Not thank God they're dead, but thank God this is over. Because I don't know how much longer either one of us could put up with this. It's a big burden to take care of someone who's ailing, severely sick. And it's even more so of a burden when you know they have a terminal illness and you know what the end result is. It doesn't matter how much you care for them, how many doctors they go to. It's going to end one way or the other. And you think about it and you think back and after someone passes and you have a moment of, well, if I would have done this and should I have done that? And maybe if we had went here or taken this no, there's nothing you can do when someone passes. Nothing. You did everything you could. You did everything right. And think about it. The end result for every single one of us is death. So there's no way you can prevent it. And in the moment, hindsight's 20/20, but in the moment you acted the best way you knew how with that situation. Rarely for any of us in life is dealing with a terminal illness for a loved one something we have practice with. It's not like, oh yeah, I do this all the time. No, you don't. So don't ever beat yourself up over it. You did everything you can do. It's over with now. There's nothing to regret. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to be angry. When my mother-in-law passed, I went into her house. It was as if nothing had ever changed in there, like she could just walk out of her bedroom. And I was so overwhelmed. I was mad. I screamed. I yelled. I did everything. I was so upset. Not at her, per se, at the situation. So it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be very sad about things. But at some point, and some point quickly, you have to let that out and you have to start living with the fact that this is never going to change and you still have a life. Dan's wife got criticized, and we did too when my mother-in-law was in the hospital. I tell you, this is the worst thing to say to someone, the nurses or whatever. Oh, are you leaving already? You're not going to stay up here? No. Not that I don't want to, but, hell, you have a life. You have work. You have pets. Some of you may have children. You have food that's going to turn bad. You have laundry that needs to be done. You have nothing else stops. So don't sit up there at the hospital with an ailing person forever and start letting the rest of your life fall apart. I don't care. Never do that. Now, if they're going to, if they're on their last breath, you may want to stay with them for that little bit, but, don't sit up there forever with someone who's dying. It is stupid to do that because you have a life too. It's not selfish, because when that person passes, the last thing you want to do is come back to your life and it also be a wreck, because you're going to have some things to do. Probably you're going to have some emotions to deal with. If you are the executor of the estate or the will, you're going to have all that to deal with. You're going to have to keep your life in order to process the death of someone correctly. So don't sit up there. And if they are on a feeding tube or unconscious or whatever, whether they can hear you or not is irrelevant. If that person didn't know that you loved them and how you felt about them before they're about to see the pearly gates of heaven, it's too late. And if they knew how you felt and they knew that you loved them, then you don't have the need to sit up there. They're not going to hate you because you weren't there 24/7. Now, on the flip side of that, don't be a jackass. Go see someone that's dying if you feel the need to do it, especially if it's a mother or a child or something. Get up there, but don't sit up there all freaking. No, that person is in the hospital and they are surrounded by people who will take care of them more so than you can. Was there a point to this episode? I guess. And if I had, as I said, there's no script. This was unplanned. My point is, there is a wrong way to grieve, but there's more than one way to grieve. And don't let the death of someone destroy your life, because you still have a life to live. We all die. I mean, it's hard. I've buried pets. I've had to put pets down. It's even hard when your pet dies, you know. We don't ever want to lose something that we love so much. I mean, even talking about it now, I'm getting a little emotional, because you just think about, damn, I wish they were here, or I wish I still had them. But life's a temporary ailment. It's only here for a short amount of time. And if you let someone's death destroy your life, it's not good. Anyway, so if you're dealing with that, or if you're dealing with someone who is about to die, or with a terminal illness, you're doing everything you can. You're doing everything right. There's nothing you could have done more or can do more. They know that they love you, that you love them. They know you love them. I remember when my mother-in-law was in the hospital, she'd kind of been in and out of consciousness isn't the right word, but the ability to speak or really comprehend what's going on. She was still, her eyes would follow you through the room, when she had not spoken for several days. And my husband was the power of attorney, and he was the one who was going to make the call, and he was the one making all the decisions. And this is if I cry, just hang on. So I remember we were leaving one night, and she had not spoken in several days. And we were both really torn up, because we, not outwardly, but inwardly, you're torn up, because this is the end. And I know he was really worried. Was he doing the right thing? And he leaned over and he said, "I love you, Mom." And the last words she ever spoke, she looked at him and as clear as day said, "I love you too." I had to leave the room. Even now, that was probably the most powerful moment I have ever witnessed in my life, because it meant you're doing everything right. I appreciate you, and I know you're here for me. It made everything better. And I'll never forget that. But even if they can't verbalize it, if they loved you before they got to the hospital, they still love you now. Oh, anyway, let's say you never get over it. Yeah, here I was. I just cried a little bit. But the moment fled and we're moving on. So, anyway, an odd episode of the Fat Gay Texan, and probably the most emotional one I'll ever hear. If you're dealing with the loss of someone, or the imminent loss of someone, just know there's someone out here on the internet who wants you to know you are loved. They love you. You're doing everything you can. I appreciate you all listening, and I really hope you got something out of this episode. My other episodes, if you get something out of it or not, whatever, who cares? This one's very, very heartfelt. This is not me angry about something. This is not something stupid in the world. So I hope you really got something out of this one. Thank you for listening. As always, you can find us on your favorite podcast platform. If we're not there, let me know. We'll try to get there. Just search the Fat Gay Texan. We're also on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr. I said Twitter. It's not Twitter anymore. I usually correct that if I'm editing these things. I don't really care. Twitter or X. We're on most social media sites. You won't find us on Instagram yet, but we're almost everywhere else. So thank you for listening. This is Jake. Have a good night, America.